With the help of a couple of tools, you may construct an excellent internet point. But also this device can take care of an unattached prototype with the help of an untidier. However, you can take an expert plan and you configure measureless prototypes with this internet point enhancement device. If your marketable enterprise is an expert, to assess the association between PBM and low union of the cystic conduit with the frequency of IPMN, in a surgical cohort of cases at the Pancreas Institute of Verona. Hotel Maripakan Kabuchu Hanakamo Dasi Penting Bagi Wisatawan, Yang Shola Ola Maripakan Pangani Ruma Tau Tempat Tinggal Nyati Perjalanan Singapengina Atau Tamu Hostel Menyunchit Swasana Aman, Nyaman Dan Membutukan Layanan Yang Ruma. Di Samping Hostel Yang Terdapat Dakota Kota Basar Atau di Kawasan Objek Wisata Yang Luas Dan Terkenal, Terdapat Juga Jenis Penjina Pan, Yaitu Sebagai Barakat. Still, also you're in luck. Then, we will talk about candles, if you also like candles. Still, it's time to take a look at their point to discover their different candle boxes, if you do not know Canopus yet. Canopus is a candle created in France, by master waxmakers. The spices are all chosen and made in Grasse, the capital of incense. These candles are 100 vegetables and thus recyclable. Karachi. The U.S. bone on Tuesday progressed with its trip against the rupee in the midst of a postponement in the recovery of the International Monetary Fund's IMF credit program and took off to the unrivaled high of 211 rupees as of 1115 am in the interbank exchange. The Pakistani rupee remained exceptionally changeable and progressed with moment-long string of failures against the U.S. bone, notwithstanding Finance Minister Miftah Ismail asserting that the IMF program will be restored within the following 2 days. People hit by Heathrow flight cancellations. Around 30 breakouts carrying up to 000 passengers have been cancelled at Heathrow Airport due to specialized issues affecting baggage. The field asked airlines to cut 10 breakouts from schedules across outstations 2 and 3 on Monday. It comes after problems at baggage reclaim areas, with images of luggage being piled up high arising last week. Away, EasyJet blazoned plans to cut 7 of its 000 breakouts listed between July and September. The move came after Gatwick, EasyJet's main field, said it'll reduce the number of breakouts taking off from its field during the peak summer season because of staff dearths. Knockouts of thousands of passengers have been hit by field dislocation and flight cancellations in recent weeks. The BBC understands some airlines might be suitable to combine breakouts at Heathrow, meaning some passengers won't have their peregrinations laid over. Heathrow said cutting the number of breakouts would minimize the impact of the specialized issues affecting baggage systems. We apologize unreservedly for the dislocation passengers have faced over the course of this weekend, the company said. British Airways, which operates from outstations 3 and 5, told the BBC it had made a small number of cancellations as a result of the field's request. It's understood BA will be suitable to accommodate the vast majority of guests onto new breakouts. Hundreds of breakouts across the UK were cancelled during the week of the Platinum Jubilee and half-term leaves, and enterprises have been raised to farther trip straights during the summer. The dislocation has been caused by several factors, but staff dearths have left the aeronautics assiduity floundering to manage with resurgent demand. As well as Gatwick, EasyJet also verified there would be flight cancellations at other airfields across the airline's network, including Amsterdam's Schiphol Mecca, but it has not yet worked out a precise number. Last week, Schiphol said it would limit the number of passengers allowed at the field over summer, leading to a 16 fall in planned breakouts. EasyJet said guests would be given advance notice and the eventuality to rebook indispensable breakouts. It added numerous would be suitable to rebook on the same day they had first planned to travel. It said in recent weeks the sector had endured an unknown ramp-up in demand for trips, with April and May passenger figures reaching 7 times more advanced than the same months last time. EasyJet's principal superintendent, Johan Lundgren, said the airline would generally operate about 000 breakouts during the summer months. He apologized that the company had not been suitable to deliver the service that guests have come to anticipate from us. I cannot tell you how numerous breakouts will be impacted, he said. It would be misleading for me to give any figures moment because we simply do not know. The airline said it was canceling the breakouts to make fresh adaptability in the face of functional issues including staff dearths and ground running and at airfields as well as air business control detainments. coupled with field caps, we're taking emotive conduct to increase adaptability over the balance of summer, including a range of farther flight connections in the affected airfields, giving advance notice to guests, and we anticipate the vast majority to be rebooked on indispensable breakouts within 24 hours, Mr. Lundgren added. Can you get compensation if your flight is cancelled? Still, you have the right to either a full refund or a relief flight, if your flight is cancelled. And that different flight doesn't need to be with the same carrier, it can be a volition, as long as it flies on the same day, says Julia Lobu, CEO of Advantage Travel Partnership. Still, it'll reimburse you, if you and the airline cannot agree on a new flight. Still, you may also be entitled to compensation, but only if the airline is at fault, if the flight was cancelled with 14 days or lower notice. Still, you are entitled to compensation, but if it's the field, if it's a direct result of the airline. He said EasyJet was trying to retain from a tighter labor request, but added the main problem was not figures but the time it was taking identity checks to be reused so people are suitable to work. It's been slow to get people in the system, not so much the fact we've been floundering to the novitiate, he said. Still, Mr. Lundgren said the company was having to turn down EU operations for jobs because of Brexit, which had also contributed to the lower pool of implicit workers. We turned down 000 aspirants from the EU, he said, which equates to 40 of all people applying for jobs at the airline. I am not condemning. But of course, it has an impact. It's just lower, it's just calculi, he said. A prophet for the Department for Transport said the government was committed to erecting a robust and reliable domestic aeronautics assiduity and added it launched a CHOP scheme last time to help develop, and hold on to, UK gift. Les rares les couleurs sobres et les broderies d'un unique façon savoir-faire dans la française contre coquetterie et fignola intégrale par preservant l'innocence incontinent enfant. As per the Tresmark, the bone was swapping at 211 rupees, posterior to appreciating nearly 1 rupee and 10 paise against Monday's record high of 209 rupees and 96 paise. It also raged beyond 212 mark during intraday exchange. The rupee proceeds with its downtrend, which has also been credited to the quarter-end inaugurations because of the nation's rising import bill, accelerating the current record deficit, and draining strange trade saves other than the postpone and the restoration of the IMF program. We're absolutely concentrated on seeing an end to the dislocation at airfields and will continue to work with the assiduity. But as the Transport Secretary has made clear, it isn't egregious that reaching for the switch marked more immigration will break the problem, they added. They also suggested that changes in the law following Brexit had swung the sector more inflexible when training new workers. Airlines have been criticized in recent weeks for taking further bookings than they can manage following steep staff cuts during the height of COVID when trips ground to a halt. But assiduity leaders have argued the government could have done further to support the sector during the epidemic. Following a surge of cancellations and detainments at airfields, the DFT and the Civil Aviation Authority wrote to airlines telling them to review their schedules and to cancel breakouts that couldn't be delivered at the foremost possibility. The most recent fall starting from the morning of the week in the rupee's worth against the note comes after merchandisers turned to overreact, copying on reports that many business banks had run out of strange cash. Fiscal specialists have encouraged the State Bank of Pakistan (SBP) to assume its anticipated part in controlling the fast drop of the rupee. In any case, the public bank appears to be helpless to control what's passing as it cannot supply bones in that frame of mind to help the rupee since its own cargo of bones likewise remains at a drained position. Pakistan's strange trade saves held by the SBP have exhausted an introductory position and the nation has under about a month and a half of import cover remaining. The stores are right now under 9 billion. The nation is satisfying the essential circumstances to resuscitate the IMF advance program to stay down from dereliction. What sitting in frugality on Qantas 20-hour breakouts will be like. The world's longest flight continuous, 20 hours, as you slope in your wide armchair and decide whether you want to relax with a veritably stylish champagne, enjoy a Cook design mess with a traveling companion seated opposite, or get the crew to make your extravagantly soft bed with fresh linens. That is what is on offer for the 6 first-class passengers on board Qantas Project Sunrise direct breakouts to Sydney from London and New York starting 3 times from now, and they can anticipate paying the stylish part of 5 numbers for it. What about the 140 frugality class passengers who will be at the reverse of the 12 Airbus A350-1000s that the airline has ordered to work on the service? Qantas is not telling. We do not have any updates at the moment, but we're eager to keep you streamlined, and will partake more when we've it, a prophet told us. We do know, however, that Qantas is formally planning a well-being zone, which looks to be an area around one of the galley kitchens where you can stretch, perhaps do some yoga poses, and conceivably just stand around for a while. And, of course, Qantas will work hard at having a great selection of pictures and television shows for you to enjoy on big new in-flight entertainment defenses, as well as food and potables that it will design especially for your good on longer breakouts. But that is likely it. Ian Pechenik, the host of the Talk Aeronautics podcast, tells CNN that while a lot of attention has been paid to Qantas First Class for Project Sunrise, I suppose the real differentiator for passengers in the reverse of the aircraft is going to be the soft product. You can only ameliorate acquainted frugality seating so much, so chancing ways to make a 20-hour flight in one of those seats palatable is going to come down to what additional Qantas can offer those passengers. I am a specialist aeronautics intelligencer with further than a decade of going in depth with all kinds of people at airlines, airplane manufacturers, contrivers, and Biat makers to figure out how every inch of the airplane is used. And since Qantas is not talking, they are my professional deductions about what is likely to be on offer on board. First out, there is the important liability of anything really revolutionary. 3 times to 2025 are not a long time in aeronautics, especially when it comes to seats. Unless Qantas is planning some kind of big bunk reveal which would bear a massive quantum of safety instrument work, it seems enough certain that frugality passengers will just be in normal seats. Going back to the first principles, comfort situations in frugality class seats are substantially grounded on seat style, pitch, and range. In terms of seat style, Qantas can be anticipated to pick up the veritably stylish frugality class seats on the request from the top design and engineering enterprises, like Recaro or Collins Aerospace. These are called completely featured seats, with comfortable engineered seat lathers covered by special fabrics, a substantial quantum of recline, a substantial headrest, under-seat footrest, and in Qantas' case a small bottom hammock. In recent times, contrivers and masterminds have worked hard on the tails and bases of airplane seats so that they give enough space to the person sitting behind, particularly for their knees and pins. They have figured out how to make the gentle bottom of the president, known as the seat visage, articulate when reclined, changing the pressure points on the inhabitant's body as they lean back. Qantas Boeing 787-9 Dreamliners, which launched in 2016, used a customized interpretation of German manufacturer Recaro's CL3710 seat. The CL3710 dates back to 2013, and Recaro has been making updates each time, but it wouldn't be surprising if it was working on a special interpretation for Qantas. There might indeed be a brand new seat from Recaro or someone differently with indeed further comfort. That could well be ready for Qantas to start flying in late 2025. The alternate factor in comfort is pitch, which measures the point on one seat to the point on the same seat incontinently in front of it, so it's not relatively total legroom because it includes an inch or two of the seat back structure. Qantas has promised that its frugality class seats on board will offer 33 elevations, 84 centimeters, of the pitch. That is 1 inch further than the 2016 Dreamliner seats, and by 2025 I'd anticipate the seat engineering to have narrowed the seat structure by over an inch to offer further knee space. It wouldn't be a surprise if Qantas offered extra legroom sections too, which might stretch to 35 or 36 elevations, along the lines of United's Economy Plus or Delta's Comfort Plus, not the ultra-expensive frugality, but just normal frugality seats with further legroom. What about range? There is either great news or terrible news ahead for passengers, depending on how numerous seats Qantas puts in each row of the A350. The big binary aisle airplane can either hold 9 seats per row, which has been the standard that full-service airlines like Qantas, Delta, and Singapore Airlines have offered, or 10 seats per row, which has largely been aboard ultra-low-cost and rest carriers like France's Air Caraïbes and French B. Width-wise, the A350 is one of the most comfortable frugality class options in the air at 9 across with seats over 18 elevations wide. At 10 across, it's one of the least comfortable, with seats slightly scraping 17 elevation and super narrow aisles too. You might imagine, and Qantas published cutaway clearly shows that a full-service airline like Australia's flag carrier would naturally go for the 9 across configuration. But Airbus has been setting a quiet plan to sculpt out an inch or two of redundant space by slimming down the cabin sidewalls. That led some full-service airlines, including Abu Dhabi-grounded Etihad, to plan to install 10 across seating on some unborn A350s. Qantas says that it plans to install 140 Frugality-class seats on its A350. That would be 14 rows of 10, but that number does not divide neatly into 9, indeed if you try to add some redundant seats on the sides or in the middle. It would still be surprising to see Qantas do that, especially for those super long breakouts. But the airline installed seats nearly as narrow as its Dreamliner seats that fly continuously from London Perth for nearly as long, so watch this space for details. At the end of the day, every inch matters when it comes to frugality and class comfort. Numerous passengers, me included, recoil at the idea of a 20-hour-plus flight, indeed in business class. I have done commodity nearly as long in business class, on Singapore Airlines continuous from Newark to Singapore about 10 times agone, but it was not important fun, indeed with the capability to go from movie to sleeping and back again. Whenever we end up talking about this, people always bring up the other option, a stretch half from New York to Sydney in Los Angeles or San Francisco, or in any of a dozen top-notch airfields in Asia between Sydney and London. But people have always squinched at spending longer in a seat, first at the idea of a single-hop kangaroo route flight, also at the idea of a flight lasting 12, 14, or 16 hours. Before the epidemic, there were dozens of breakouts longer than that, with regular Frugality class seats down the reverse, and people sounded willing to sit in them. The question is just how important of a difference that redundant 3 or 4 hours over the London Perth Qantas 787 Dreamliner flight will make to passengers and, crucially, to their comprehension.